We're just trying to understand each other, And I really asked questions. I'm interested in asking questions. What is it that started all this? And the idea of, what happened, the Holocaust, it is a moral obligation on the entire world to help the Jews have their own state and so on. Well, but this has nothing to do with Palestinians. If you want to have all the Jews coming back to the state, you have a problem. And the problem is called Palestinians. These people live there for hundreds of years. What are we going to do with them? Annihilate them, or one of two things. Annihilate all of them, eliminate them, or integrate them into a democratic state. And believe me, it's very contradictory to have a Jewish state and democratic state. You cannot have, it's either or. It's either a Jewish state where Jews are treated differently than Palestinians, and this is the definition of apartheid, or you have a democracy. Democracy means all people are treated equally, Jews and non-Jews. And that's impossible to have, because this means that the whole ideology or idea of having a Jewish state is gone. So, but Israel actually is speaking, like, as they say that from both sides of their mouth. We need a Jewish state and we need a democracy. And they always repeatedly keep saying that this is the only democracy in the region. And by the way, this means that your best allies around are not democracy. Egypt is not democracy, and you know that, right? Implicitly, Jordan is not about democracy, right? Syria, there's no democracy. If you keep praising Israel as the only democracy, so why are you giving aid to these undemocratic countries? There's another thing that people don't ask. But Israel cannot be. Imagine if America now declared that we are Christian states. Christians have this privilege in the Constitution. Non-Christians are treated differently, and so on and so forth. I'm sure in this case, Muslims will be in the bottom of the list. But imagine if this is the state. That cannot be democracy. You cannot have it both ways. It's either or. Jewish state or democratic state. Right? You are not giving aid, $4 billion a year for Israel because it's the only democracy. That's not the reason. Well, because Napoleon tried to do it, to have his arm there to control the region. The British tried to do this and they were successful. And then the Americans are taking over when the British actually find out that they cannot win the military war against the new-born mighty United States. They withdrew and they understood, our empire, is shrinking, but we don't have to have further conflict with the new superpower. And that's why Biden said that if there's no Israel, we have to create it. For the same reason Napoleon wanted to have it. For the same reason British successfully established this Zionist ideology. So I was planning actually to play this lecture, but perhaps next week, inshallah, we'll be actually better prepared. The technology is not helping so much. So inshallah, we'll just stop here, and I would like to hear from you, your comments, and any questions if you have any.
Assalamu alaikum. I appreciate your talk, and I think it's educational and informational. I have two questions, please. The first, could you speak and provide some detail about the reason why of getting Jews out of Europe and other places, why it's a British problem?
Sorry, I didn't know if you could hear me. If you could provide some detail about why the Britain wanted to get the Jews out in France before. And then my second question is similar to what I asked last week. What do you see as the solution to this problem going forward? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with the second question. I used to think it's a very complex subject because you have history and theology and religion, but it's not complex. The more I understand what's going on, clearer it becomes. And the occupation. That's the problem. And this is how we solve it. End the occupation. If Palestinians are happy all Arabs and the entire world will be happy. I was asked this by the mayor of Fortress Hills. He has this talk show, and he decided to invite me, and he asked me, "What do you think about the naturalization of the relationship between Israel and the Arab nation, the United Arab Emirates, Sudan, and Egypt, and now from what Saudi Arabia and so on, Bahrain?" I said, well, that's good, but this is not going to solve the problem. You don't have any issues with Emirates or Saudi Arabia. You don't have borders with them, right? But if you really want to have peace in the region, then you have to strike a deal with the Palestinians. If Palestinians are happy, then everybody will be happy. And the request is to leave all these land that have been occupied after 1967, including Jerusalem. That can solve the problem. But what we are making it difficult. The American politicians are making it more difficult. When Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem, which is occupied land under the international law, the capital of Israel, and he brought the American embassy in Israel, in Jerusalem. You are making it, you see, they are changing things on the ground. Let's talk conferences, talk peace, but in reality, they make it impossible to go back in time and go back to 1967 or even in 2000. Because settlements are there, what are they going to do with these people? This is the reality on the ground. So the solution is end the occupation. Have one state, democratic state like the United States, when you have people from different backgrounds and different religious, cultural, and race backgrounds, all treated equally. That's the way. In South Africa, they recognize this is the only way out after years of apartheid. You have European white controlling everything, and segregation was made. This is exactly segregation. If this is not segregation, I don't know what is. If it's not racism, I don't know what is. When you put the Palestinian, the native people into these pockets in West Bank and in the Gaza Strip, Israeli settlers, they are organized and they have so much rights. Israelis, just for people to go from one point to another, it takes half an hour. They do it in 4 hours because they have to go through checkpoints. Harassment of Palestinians is ongoing, and I'm surprised how people deny it. At this meeting I was talking about, that they said, oh, no, Palestinians, they have the same right, they have citizenship. They have it all. What are you talking about? They rely on the fact that people don't know. And as one American journalist said, that those who've never been in the region, they don't really understand what's going on. You fully understand when you go there and live there and understand how Palestinians live their life, daily life. So the solution is end the occupation, either two-state solution or one-state democratic state. Israel actually does not accept either, unfortunately. For the first question, Europe always tried to export their problems. The last people in the world talk about violence and terrorism are the Europeans. The history of Europe is the history of racism, the history of violence, religious war, otherwise crusaders. So they thought of Jews as a problem. They're a problem. For whatever reason, they were successful. Some said because perhaps they have too much power and control over economy and things that so influential. And a person like Hitler doesn't like that. He won't have full control over everything. Allahu A'lam. Why? Just, yes.
I have a comment to make.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Saleh Jabari, a Palestinian. Some people call them Lebanese, some people call them Pakistani. I know some people think that I come from India. Other people, other people thought I am Mexican.
Wow.
In New York, they thought I have Italian heritage. Nevertheless, I'm a Palestinian and I'm proud of it. But I want to add to the comment that Imam made, and the question was asked why England was interested in supporting Israel to exist in Palestine. There is a document, as you know, that the European fought the Ottomans and they succeeded. So the Ottoman Empire was gone and European countries were becoming weaker in those days. And there is a secret conference. And the documents of that conference are available in 1917. In 1917, the foreign ministers of 14 European countries got together discussing their future. And they said, you know, we are economically broke, but if you look at the map of the Middle East, you will find if you travel from Yemen all the way to Marrakesh, you will find people of the same religion, basically the same language. And what is lacking in this region is just unity. So imagine if those people were to get united, we would be decimated once again. So they said in that document what they needed is some break in that union. Okay? Okay, the document was sealed and put away, but Herzl and Weizmann got hold of it. When they got hold of it, they went to the British and they said, you know what, we can be the power who will be established in that region to divide East from West. If you recall, the early 1900s, the discovery of oil was made in Saudi Arabia. So that is part of the reason why they are interested in dividing the Middle East, so that they control the resources of the Middle East, okay? As one. And second, to have an emissary for them to be located in an area that really divides East from West. And Biden finally said the truth that many, many Western people kind of kept it inside, and that is, if Israel does not exist, we have to create some other power similar. That really summarizes the history of Palestine and the history of the Arab relationship with the West. So now there are two more conspiracies are being worked on, and they will be established. Believe me, they will be. If you look, if you look at the Canal Suez Canal, okay, the advantage of that is connected Red Sea with the Mediterranean. But the purpose of it is to connect Southeast Asia and some European with the resources of Southeast Asia. And the Suez Canal then did that performance. Many years ago, the Israelis had another view. And the other view now is being undertaken by Israel, United States, United Arab Emirates, to some extent Saudi Arabia. And that is to establish another canal alternative to the Suez Canal. And that is to build a canal that connects the beginning of the Gulf area, the Persian Gulf, as they call it, and we Arabs call it the Arabic Gulf. Okay. It's connected with a canal that will travel then from Sinai to Gaza. Now, what do you think Israelis and Americans are interested in ethnic cleansing of Gaza. If you know, they are calling for people to migrate from the north. They say, we want you to leave the north, go to the south. Well, there is a reason for it. The canal will then pass through Gaza. Okay, then Gaza becomes the port that Israel would control to export things from the Southeast Asia, China, whatever, to the Mediterranean. That is one conspiracy. Please follow that. It's in the news lately. The other alternative, it might be another one, and that is to build a railroad which connects Southeast Asia with Israel. And that railroad will start from India and will go through those countries, will go through the United Arab Emirates, perhaps north of Saudi Arabia. It will enter into Israel. It will end up in Haifa. Okay? So the old Hijaz Railroad, which used to connect Syria, Lebanon, Palestine to Saudi Arabia, actually still exists, but it's not operative. But so they want to recreate that, and these would be two alternatives to compete with the Suez Canal, because that is another idea to weaken the Arab countries even more. Okay, so then the status of Egypt as a major road between East and West will be diminished. Please follow the news and you will learn a lot. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't know, I asked the question to you, Imam, or to Saleh. Can you give us a little hint, please, about the description and or the problem conflict inside Israel between the Sephardi and the Ashkenazi conflict, which is long term, is going to be promising for whatever is going to happen in Israel? So, did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard it. Sorry. Your question is how the relationship between the Ashkenazi
And the Sephardi in Israel. You know, the Arab Jews that they were, pushed to go to Israel. And the conflict that's happening inside Israel now.
Yes, you're right, but as you know that with time, things will change. I have been listening to a lot of Iraqi Jews, but they're older people who would remember that. But the younger generation, some of them will speak the language, some of them are proud of it, but they really is no longer earning for Baghdad. It's more commitment to Israel. So with the Moroccan, they still, as you know, Moroccan Jews, they still have the Moroccan passport. So Marrakesh is open for them at any time they want to go. And roughly 50% of the Jews carry two passports. Anybody who came from Europe, they still has that. And as you probably heard, in the last 5 years, Spain reached an agreement to declare that if a Jew can prove that his ancestor came from Spain into the Marrakesh, they're qualified to get Spanish citizenship. And there were tens of thousands of Jews who applied for it. So I will not look at the most difficult people to deal with actually in the military right now are the Eastern Jews. So I think things have changed. What they were hoping is that the Arab will be the same. In other words, I was born when Palestine was still Palestine. So I experienced that, and I experienced living under Israel. Because we are the part of people which are called Arab of 48. Arab of 48 constitute between 15 to 20% of the Israeli population. And the birth rate is maybe 5 times as high as the Jewish. Okay? What they were hoping that the newer generation, even though they speak the language and they understand, but they are really more committed to the cause of Palestine than, let's say, my generation. Okay? In the sense that because they have citizenship, and to some extent, they have a little freedom to demonstrate, although there is no equal rights. I mean, it is true what they say, Arabs have the right to vote. It is true, but they're still minority. Any deviation from anything, you'll be put in jail. No question about it. In fact, to be honest with you, I could not respond to anything on my phone because of concern that if I like something, they may question me and may keep me there, because that's what they did with many newspaper or anybody raising the supporting that. So that's where I think
It's far from being far.
Oh, it's very far from being democratic. Yes, I tell you what, the policy, as Imam mentioned, when you travel from the airport to Haifa, there are 2 ways to go, either the shore or you can go into that area which is called, we call it Al-Mutallaf, the region of Al-Mutallaf, which connects the southern part of Tel Aviv and so on to Afula. Afula is just near Nazareth. And when you travel through that land, you will find villages as you travel north. They are on the right-hand side. They are part of the West Bank, and the left hand, they are part of the Arab of 48. And some villages are both. So here's the policy. Every village is surrounded. Every Arab village has around it 2 or 3 settlements, which are on the high grounds, and or the street divide, the highway divide. So there is no more expansion for Arab villages to expand, and that is the policy. You can find that on the Galilee as well as in the Mutallaf region. Now, while the Arabs of Israel, you are considered a citizen if in 1948, when the registration of people took place, if you are present, then you are allowed to be. There's a law in Israel called the law of presentee absentee, present absentee. What happened with that is, in the Galilee, there are a lot of Arab villages that are extremely close to the Lebanon. So as the Israeli army took over, those who are lucky to come back to their village consider okay. But if you were not present in that evening or that day, you're absent. So even though, let's say, even though you were in an Arab village within the boundary of now 40, Israel, but it happened, the registration has not reached it. And if you came the second day to where registration has been reached, you are not present. Yeah. No. You have some rights, but your land is no longer belong to you. Yeah, that is the whole thing is land. The whole thing is land.
We call Israel, Saleh, the land of honey, milk, and honey. Can you elaborate, please?
That's okay. That's okay.
Did you get it?
I heard it. I don't want to respond to it, but I mean, it honestly has a lot of milk, definitely. It is true. But that's not just limited to Jewish farmers. I think that is what the propaganda used to say. In other words, anybody who is interested also in the history of Palestine, there are three books written by Ghada Karmi. Ghada Karmi, she is a British Palestinian origin. She lived in Jerusalem, and eventually she had to immigrate. And her father was in the Ministry of Education, and somehow he got a job in London, and so he took his family to London, and she graduated there from London with a PhD in literature, and she wrote 3 books. One of the books titled "The Bride is Married." The bride is married. Because in 1880, Zionist movement started, the religious guys, the guys with the big hat, and they did not believe any of this talk. They just wanted to fight for themselves. So they sent 2 rabbis to visit Palestine in the early 1900s. When they asked them, what did you find? They said, well, the bride is married. The land has people in it. There are farms, there are houses there. Okay? So that was the title of that book.
So it's not like a land without people.
That's correct. Yeah, this is a big forced land without people. And so on. We need, yeah.
You know, I read a story this morning for the first time. There's a joint Muslim and Jewish peace movement. And the main information I got from the story was it has been in existence for a while, but it's not making any headway and progress. But in that news item, they mentioned the settlers are only 3% of West Bank land. So it will be easy to move them. It's not that a difficult process to resettle because they are only on just 3% of the land. And I didn't realize that is such a small percentage. So they can be moved in a peace initiative.
I have been a student of Arab-Israeli conflict. Some of you have been very dear to my heart. I'm perhaps the only. I am perhaps the.
We cannot hear you, Amjad.
Can you hear me now?
I think it's a battery issue. So try this. It's a battery. Could be a battery issue.
Can you hear me now? Yes, thank you. I'm perhaps the only columnist writing for Blade since 1994 who has not shied away from addressing this issue in town here. The solution was asked earlier, what's the solution? Tom Friedman was visiting Saudi Arabia back in the 90s, and he had a meeting with King Abdullah. And King Abdullah showed him the document. That's the first time that any Arab country, particularly Saudi Arabia, has shown interest in a practical solution. That solution was 1967 borders. Second is that the settlements, old settlements should stay, and Palestinians will be given a land in compensation to what the settlements are in Israel. Third was that they will allow some Palestinians to return, but not all the refugees could return to their homes and lands. And the fourth was the question of sovereignty over the holy places. I think these were the last two issues which failed the summit at Camp David during Clinton's time. And Arafat walked away from it for good reasons. That if a Jew who has never been out of Brooklyn has the right to be in Israel, how could not Nasser Mansour's family, who come from what is now Israel, return to their lands? As Imam said, it is not complicated, but the debris and the dust of time has made it so. I think there are still sane voices. I urge you to read the column by Tom Friedman. He has been writing almost every day about this issue. And he said that you can go and do anything you want, not preferably in Gaza, just to avenge. But unless at this time Netanyahu declares his support for a two-state solution, then this problem is going to expand. I think there are people who, instead of taking completely 100% here, 100% there, are in between. They are looking for a solution. Imam, I was so taken by your khutbah, not day before yesterday, but a week before. But you addressed it very nicely. You also mentioned that atrocities against men, women, children is not part of either the international laws, but it's against Islam. I mean, period. And I have not seen many people who have committed you did that from the member who have said that what Hamas did was not right, but that does not mean that the problem is not there. It's still there and need to be tackled. Thank you.
Yeah, let me answer the question about the settlement. That maybe physically what the settlement is occupying is the number you mentioned. However, settlements are connected by the highways, which no Arab is permitted to travel on. Okay? So that after all, the West Bank, the current West Bank, is only 20% of the area of Palestine. only. So if you would allow the settlement to continue, which they have been doubling every year, you are talking about the division of the West Bank into Swiss cheese. No two villages are connected, and the highway, I've been there I came back, by the way, last Wednesday. I only had to stay there only 12 days. The plan was to stay there 4 weeks, but the situation was not stable enough for me to stay. So I know, and I've seen it, the wall divides one village into two. The highway, because it's only open, allowed for Jewish settlement people to travel on, that takes a lot of land into possession. Okay, so it is true, there's a lot of misinformation, I know. I think, well, I don't want to enter into that. Netanyahu. So I don't want to lies which comes out from that. I mean, he's been declared as the biggest liar in this world. There was no massacre of Jews. There really was no massacre. This is the words of Jews themselves. It's not mine. Till now, they cannot produce any video or any picture to confirm the claim. And Biden, unfortunately, he was quick enough to quote that, and then a few hours later, the White House explained it. Until now, Israel cannot produce any proof whatsoever that there was a massacre. Yes, that we had it, yes. There is absolutely no evidence of that. I myself listened to 3 Israeli who explained everything. And I don't know if some of you watched, there was a lady who was taken hostage with 2 kids. And they released her the 2nd or 3rd day. And she had nothing but praise of how she was treated. And they tried to tell her, well, you were not, they did not do that to you. She said, no. I mean, she was really absolutely clear that they treated her with respect. That does not mean the killing of the people who were in that concert and so on is justified, as Dr. Amjad Hussain mentioned. But at the same time, at the current time, is over 4,000. Half of it are children of less than 8 years old. Doesn't justify continuation of this.
I just want to say that in our mind, we need to think that there are 4,000 people who died, kids in Gaza. But I think the primary thing is for us as a people of conscience to admit that what Hamas did in Israel was unjustified. Then we can start from there and to say what they are doing in Gaza is more than justified. Absolutely not. But I would say that if you take away the humanity from someone, you're going to lose your humanity. And right is right and wrong is wrong. I will never equate in my mind to say, well, see what happens if you don't solve the problem. I mean, that is a rabbit hole that we all tend to go through, and I think we should avoid that.
What I would like to talk about is the fact that Gaza is technically a prison. It is totally controlled by the Israeli government. Any amount of food that goes in there is in the hands of the Israelis. They can withdraw it, they can give it. Water is controlled by the Israeli government. Medicine is controlled by the Israeli government. The people of Gaza are in prison. They're not allowed to leave out unless they want to work in Israel, they have to sign a paper to go and be spies on their own families, on their own communities. So when you are in prison and you are controlled and you have no control over your food, your medicine, your water, your electricity, your fuel, and it has been there for how many years? In decades? I would like to see any one of us live in that position and be normal and not be able to fight back. You take a cat and put it in a corner and you threaten it, and what does it do? Comes right back at you. And I think the biggest issue is that the Israeli government and many of the Israeli people are not facing the fact that this is criminal and they have no right to do that, and they still don't want to admit it. They still don't want to admit it. And what they want to do is they want to take that area and they want to take it and resettle it and use it for their own purposes. So let's not forget that. Let's not blame the Gaza people or Hamas or whatever. They don't have a right to kill others, but at the same time, when you're put in that position, there's no other choice.
I think that I really like the discussion that we have. I hope this discussion will continue. And time is up. Thank you so much for coming. And perhaps we'll continue this discussion next Sunday. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان الله وبحمده ليس عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Call the adhan and the qama for both, inshallah.